Ooh. You have entered the Salawag's podcast universe. Adjacent to your reality is my universe, where I am destined to round. Aloha nerds and welcome back to the Salawag's Wide Straight Gut Reaction. I'm your host, TheSalawag, and on this show, I watch things and react from the gut. And I gotta tell you about Paper Girls. I just finished watching this a few days ago, and I really loved it. For those of you, sidebar here, for those of you frustrated about She-Hulk and the kind of forced feminism and kind of the writing's a little hollow. You know, it's just not there. This kind of seems to be the direction that Marvel is going. Or for whatever reason, if you didn't like Miss Marvel, I don't blame you for that either. But for those of you looking for some good science fiction content featuring girls, Paper Girls is for you. What I would have to say is there's nothing hollow about this show. It's really well written, really well directed, incredibly well performed. I love this cast. I was not expecting a show about a bunch of girls who run a paper route to be interesting to me because I never grew up with a newspaper anyway. I don't know what it's like to have a paper delivered to your door. Not my universe, you know. I'm from the adjacent universe, and in the adjacent universe, we can't afford papers given from a paper route. So, I mean, there was those little, pulley tabby thingies, those little stand thingies downtown in San Francisco. That was about it. But, anyway, Paper Girls. Very good show. So, the whole deal for the show, for those who don't know, what is Paper Girls, the Salawaggy? I don't know what you're saying. Paper Girls is about 4 girls who run a paper route delivering newspapers in the early hours of the morning. And as they're on their route, a few of them get hassled by some teenagers who sound funny and look weird, and not in the normal like pimples and creepy kind of weird. Just they literally just something about them is off, and they can't quite put their finger on it. And I gotta say, it's really cool when all of a sudden it turns out these 2 teens are like time traveling soldiers, and they get these 4 girls, these 4 paper girls, get pulled into their time travel war, where these 2 kids are like these rebels, and then you have this kind of oppressive, very well dressed force coming after them, and they're literally they time travel as a consequence of just crossing this battle, or so it appears. Certainly, I'm not 100% sure by the finale whether this was coincidence or whether this was some kind of chosen moment. It seems to be an accident that everyone was reacting to. But essentially, they get yanked out of their time. The show starts off in 1988, 1 year before I am born. And, the cast of girls is really, they're cool. They're all very interesting, dynamic characters, very distinct people, and they're all 12 years old, so they're very young, they're that tween age. And what I like is that I hate in most movies and shows when the younger person is just kind of, oh, I'm just kind of here. I'm just kind of a prop to show that the adult cares about people. Because if they care about a child, whoa, Chris Pratt, whoa, you care about me? And you care about dinosaurs? You're the man, Chris Pratt. Ooh. That kind of writing and directing of children is just like, the kid is a prop. I mean, the kid is not even a character, they're a prop. And they're being used to sucker you into thinking that they matter in this movie. And they do not. But what's great about the writing of these 4 girls is that they're all very distinct. Our main character, who played by Riley Nelet. I hope I'm saying it right. Her character's name is Erin. She's the new girl. She's the new girl, and being the new girl, that's our perfect sort of way to get into a story. You have, for the audience who's never run a paper route or anything like that, uh, you get to be the new person with her. So you go see what it's like to deliver mail, and then there's creepy, weird people coming out stealing mail. There's all these scenarios that these girls get into, including being bullied by paper boys on their paper routes. This whole premise starts off on the day after Halloween, which is supposed to be a scary day to be delivering mail for all the squabblers and the troublemakers still hanging out from Halloween. So we get to see them go through these trials and all this stuff, and we are introduced to each one, and we get Sofia Rosinsky, who kind of steals the show. She plays a character named Mac, and I was struck right away how this young lady looks identical to John Connor from Terminator 2. I almost thought she was a boy. I was like, same haircut, same jacket, almost the same shirt, almost the same. Like, she looks like John Connor from Terminator 2, which to me is like part of this kind of. It's sort of a comedy, but the show is played so straight, it kind of works as a straightforward semi drama. So we got this sort of tough as nails Mac, who is kind of helping protect the group, and you got Cameron Jones playing Tiffany Quilkin, who is kind of the leader in a kind of way, or tries to be the leader. And then we got, I hope I'm saying your name right, Finna Straza playing KJ, who also kind of steals the show because she at first appears to be a bit more of a vulnerable character. She's one of the people getting attacked during the show that the paper girls kind of have to unite to protect. And we get to see her grow across the show. Both KJ and Erin, they're both the more vulnerable characters at the start of this show. And as we go through the time travel aspect, and as we go through all their adventures through time, they do go through different time periods throughout the show, and they spend just enough time in each time period that you do feel like you're in a time travel show, and we get to see each character's future self actually. And some characters are very disappointed in how they turn out, and other characters are like, yeah, I thought so. But each one is surprised at the direction that they go in. I think that's one of the best parts of the show. So without spoiling too much, just a fantastically written show. I think one of the best arcs is the main character's arc. Erin meeting herself as an adult pretty much in the first episode going into the second, played by Ali Wong. Adult Erin is played by Ali Wong. That was one of my huge pulls for this show, because I saw Ali Wong, and I'm not familiar with her work as an actress. So, if in the troll scroll I'm showing, listed movies and performances, I probably didn't see those. But I love her stand-up. I love stand-up, and Ali Wong is Baby Cobra. Hilarious. I loved that. I've seen a couple other stand-ups that she did. Just the stuff that was on Netflix and television and stuff. I wish I saw that live. But man, Ali Wong, not only, beautiful, but so funny, such a great comedian. And here she is playing this very buttoned down, very unhappy adult who is not happy with how her life kind of turned out. And I really like that she has her own personal struggle where she feels very weak and small, and it kind of lines up with young Erin's feelings as well. And what she goes through is awesome. once we get into the cooler tech parts, because there are some future tech in here, I'm not spoiling anything. Maybe there's a giant robot. I didn't say anything else, but maybe there's a giant robot. Maybe Ali Wong pilots a giant robot. Uh, when we get to the future tech stuff, I just love where these characters go. And so I really don't want to spoil too much about this show. If you haven't seen it yet, please go watch it. Paper Girls is incredibly well written. The creator of the show is Stephany Folsom, who wrote Toy Story 4. So although it's not my favorite, it has nothing to do with the writing or the making of the movie. I think those movies just kind of fall into the trap of trying to be the first movie. And it's like, get over it. Get over it. Like, you have to find another way to tell these stories if you're going to keep making Toy Story movies. I do think Toy Story 4 went as far as it could to tell a new type of story, but ultimately they all kind of become the same thing about a toy getting lost. But that didn't mean the writing wasn't well done. She also wrote 2 episodes of Star Wars Resistance. Haven't seen that. But then, that's some pretty good credits. I mean, Toy Story 4 to me is like, what else do you need to say? Write this show. And she did write a couple episodes. I gotta say, the directing was perfect. There's a consistent visual presentation from episode to episode where it's all very personal. It feels both like an indie film and kind of like a big movie at the same time, which to me just has a lot to say about the talent of the people behind the camera. I think if you're watching this, you are going to have a solid experience of hey, I'm watching something well made, well written, well acted, and you're not going to leave going, why did that happen? I think the show does a great job of really being honest with oneself. It has a lot of with every character interacting with their future selves, there's a lot of introspection going on, because much of the season is not them being involved in the war. They're just trying to get back to their original time. Because again, they came through time travel completely by accident. They were not supposed to be involved in this conflict, but they get more involved as we get to the finale, which is cool. So you get a lot of natural time for the story to develop and have a story. It's not just a plot that's booming around. If Future Man is the Seth Rogen, really amoral, very nearly amoral take on time travel, that's a really like almost exploitative, that Seth Rogen style of comedy. If that's one end of the spectrum, and then you have Back to the Future, a little bit more earnest, a little bit more honest, parts feel very real. I would say Paper Girls falls a little closer in line to like Back to the Future with again, giant robot. There's a giant robot. I didn't say that. This is spoiler free. Man, what a good show. I just don't want to spoil it too much, but damn, I if you want me to talk about a more spoilery aspects of the show, I will. But I just gotta say, I do remember Paper Girls being talked about from actual people who read comic books. I mean, I have a comic book stack this big. That's not much. But I do recall YouTubers who read comics talking about Paper Girls. Paper Girls was written, created by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chiang. Hope I'm saying your name right. So eventually I got to pick that up. If you've read that and you know whether this is accurate or not, please let me know in the comments. I don't care if you like my podcast. I don't need that. But if you have information, I like information. Please tell me, was this accurate? If you watch this show because of me, or if you have watched the show and you just want to know what I thought, and you've also read the comic, please let me know. I just want to know, is it accurate to the comic book? Would you recommend it to me? Do you think I'll like it based on me enjoying the show? And maybe I'll check it out. Maybe I'll do a little comic book review. Who knows? Who knows what could happen in the future of the Salawags podcast? But I gotta say, again, without spoiling too much, Fina, who plays KJ, a kind of a surprise standout performer in this show. There's a quality about her that kind of reminds me of a young Kirsten Dunst. And I'm not talking about Interview with a Vampire because that's weird, but I am talking about like Jumanji. Because in Jumanji, you have these two kids who, modern day kids, dealing with Robin Williams, who pops in from the game, who was once a player himself, and he's popping into their life story. They've lost their parents, and you're seeing both kids kind of struggling with an absence of parents. And Robin Williams kind of takes on this wild man fatherly figure, and his old girlfriend or would be girlfriend, who also played the game with him, joins the story. And over the course of the story of Jumanji, we get to know more about what happened to Kirsten Dunst and her brother, and why they act the way they act, because the brother is always kind of nervous and afraid, and Kirsten Dunst is always lying. She's a pathological liar. And we kind of see them go through these issues and kind of slowly get little glimpses into their personal pains and why they are that way. And that is kind of what I'm referring to when I make that statement. I really feel like the actress who plays KJ has a lot of depth going on. The whole cast is fantastic. I just all the girls and the adult versions of the girls are just amazing. I love the relationship between Tiffany and her adult self. That is, it comes at the perfect time in the show when all the girls have gone through some sort of traumatic experiences, getting more involved with the bigger plot, and it's just it lightens the story up, but also moves the plot way forward. I think that relationship is kind of like the perfect cap on where the show really starts with Aaron versus Aaron, where they are talking about like, hey, how did your life get this way? I had this way I saw myself being in the future, and I kind of didn't expect you to go this way. And like I said, for the characters who are disappointed, like I don't want to say who, but there's a couple characters who are just so disappointed in their future selves. And they're trying to tell their future selves, get off your ass and make yourself better. I'm sick of seeing you like this. And I can't help but imagine myself in the same position. If maybe not my 12-year-old self, but certainly my 15-year-old self, and definitely my 16-year-old self, if he saw me right now working at a popular retail store, not saying the name, and not doing my filmmaking thing, and if I told him sort of the mistakes I've made and all that stuff, he would probably just be so pissed at me and just say, what the hell's the matter with you? Like, you've missed golden opportunities, and you fell down this rabbit hole into the abyss of not becoming I thought you were supposed to be the great filmmaker. I thought that's what I was supposed to be. And very similar to how Bill Murray in Ghostbusters 2 ends up being a game show host. This is predicted by Sigourney Weaver, his love interest in the first Ghostbusters, that he reminds her more of a game show host. There was someone in my life who had predicted I'm maybe more of a movie reviewer, or a better movie reviewer than a filmmaker. Not that that necessarily was what she was saying, but she very much said I could be a movie reviewer, and here I am trying this out so many years later. I mean, talk about, I really related to that type of introspection being a part of the show. Just to bring up She-Hulk a little bit, because I totally agree with a lot of the criticisms about that show. One of the worst things in that show is the very first episode, the way She-Hulk talks to the Hulk. When she talks about how being a woman means that I go through more stuff than you and have more emotional control over myself than you, except for these awful things that you're saying to the Hulk right now. and she's so disrespectful to this person who is supposed to be like her best friend from childhood, and she knows what a horrible hard time Bruce has had dealing with the multiple personality aspect of the Hulk and the destruction and the guilt and all these horrific things that he has had to. She knows about this and yet speaks to him that way, like a teenager who doesn't really know anything and doesn't really know this person that she's supposed to know. And it's very much not how the She-Hulk would be. And I saw this excellent video by the Star Wars girl and that Star Wars girl where she showed comic book images of She-Hulk talking to Bruce Banner and how grateful she was to be the Hulk and how she respected his experiences because he struggled so hard to maintain being Bruce and the Hulk. That relationship has real history in the comic book and even my introduction in the cartoon where they're supposed to be best friends who have each other's back, and she would never talk to him that way. Now, it makes sense for the four paper girls in the show when they don't meet each other. Some of them have histories with each other. You know, the Mac and KJ totally butt heads throughout the entire show, and they are kind of the standout actors. They're playing the kind of distinctly different characters from the other two. But Mac is totally poor and kind of a rougher house. KJ is has a bit more cash going on in her family and lives a lot better. But both are struggling with something that is not spoken. And what's beautiful about the show is by the end of the season, I'm not saying that they are literally the best friends of all time, but you see them, they are going that way. That they're working through whatever personal gripes they have with each other. By the end of season one, they have gone through such a journey that they are not the same people they were at the start of the episode, and you can just see the very seeds of like a genuine bonding and a genuine friendship that would be like a lifelong friendship because of what they've gone through and how they've helped each other survive through all the different things going on. And in many ways, what the time travel for these girls represents is like a capsule. It's like a mini encapsulation of what their adult versions of themselves try to tell them. It's like, look, you don't know where life's going to go. You don't know how things are going to end up. You don't know what experiences you're going to have that are going to shift you in one direction or another. And that conversation being a part of the storytelling, I thought was so honest. I think it's what we need right now, in especially in sci-fi and cinema, television, whatever it is. We need honest, earnest storytelling. It's great to have meaning and want to be sort of an activist or fight some kind of cause. But if you don't have the genuine humanity and if you're not trying to tell who that character is, if your message is more important than the character itself and what the character would actually think and say, then you're not doing your job. There are French filmmakers who have said films should be more political, that should be the goal of films. But at a certain point, that just becomes propaganda. And I don't personally like propaganda. I like to see a story that's relatable and that's human and that has a message. And the fact that it's told through the points of view of four, I mean, I don't exactly go out there to watch movies and shows about tween girls. Like, I mean, no. You know what I mean? The fact that this had Ali Wong and this sort of sci-fi aspect is why I'm watching the show. As you can see, I'm a nerd. I like nerdy shit. And sci-fi stuff typically is about guys going through things. So that it was a very, just the premise was interesting, and Ali Wong being the big pull, I was like, you know what? I gotta see why the hell Ali Wong is in this. Like, Ali Wong being as funny as she is, playing someone just from the trailer who's not a funny person and who has just a really good story. That got me into watching this show, and so seeing it handled so well, Where at first I treasured it so much. I was like, oh, the first episode is good. Okay, let's not go straight to the second episode. I don't want it to suck in episode 2. A few days goes by. I watch episode 2. Episode 2 is very, very, very good. Okay. Okay, savor this. Savor this. Okay? So much TV that I've been watching this year has been just trash. Savor it. We'll come back and watch another episode in a couple days. And a couple days later, I watch episode 3. Episode 3 gets me. You know, the whole, Ali Wong, Aaron story is great. The Mac story really hits hard. Episode 3 and 4, which is a lot about Mac and her dealing with her future self and stuff like that, has stuff that just hits so hard for me because it's just so well done, and I do relate to parts of it, not as a whole, but aspects of her life story that are talked about. My childhood is kind of a mix of being both wonderful and kind of having some rougher moments that I don't like to talk about, and I think I'm not going to get into it, but I really relate to aspects of Mac's story that just like, you went through that. Damn, this is why you're like this. Oh my God, like, I do relate to some of that. You know, it's and seeing her actually, she gets some moments of levity and there's a relationship developed with actually the future version of her brother that is just awesome. And again, I don't want to spoil too much, but I'll just say that he hasn't seen Mac for a while, so seeing her as a kid really messes him up. But they find a way to very naturally prove that she's his younger version of his sister and make it believable that he would accept it as well. And sort of seeing them bond, it has that moment of like when you haven't seen a family member for a very long time, and you kind of get to hash out some issues that you didn't deal with before, and it kind of presents this hope that, well, maybe even the future self who has these troubles might work it out. That kind of stuff, just because there's a little, and I'm spoiling a little bit here, there's a moment where they are, the older version of her brother and her as a kid are literally shooting bottle rockets at each other, and they're just messing around like they are both 12 and 15 again. And I was so worried about this, like, is this going to be a creepy thing, is this going to be weird? But seeing that story develop was kind of the hardest hitting emotional story, or maybe I don't know, you pick your moments because stuff happens after their episode. But seeing them deal with that and the consequences, of the plot having to move on. I mean, the plot moves on, and she can't just hang out with her future brother for the whole season. But seeing her reaction afterward of having this very positive experience, and she's just kind of emotionally breaking down. There's this amazing shot where KJ's riding a bike and riding a motorcycle, and Mac is holding on to her because the plot's going on, so they just have to move on. And you just see Mac cry, and the camera just holds on this two shot of them on the bike. You're not seeing the wheels or nothing. You're just seeing like, KJ riding and Mac on her back, and you just see, and it's just a single shot that holds for a very long time and slowly pushes in. And we just see Mac cry because she had this incredible experience, this incredible time. And because of plot reasons, she can't just hang out and keep having, what she wished she had, in her current 1988 life. And that was just hit so hard. You know what I mean? That shot is so good, and it's just a testament. also seeing KJ's reactions, even though she's riding the bike, she's kind of noticing, like, are you crying back there? Is something going on? You know, she's like, what? You know, and then her, after you see it in her face, I talk a lot about storytelling through performance. KJ recognizing that Mac is having a problem and kind of wanting to do something, say something, but she's got to control the bike, and just kind of choosing to be strong in the moment and just hang on, and we'll confront the issue when we get there. Stuff like that. Performances, moments, directing choices like that really make this show worthwhile. You know, I know I've sort of spoiled a little bit of what's going to happen in the show if you haven't seen it, but I hope if you have seen it and you're watching and just wondering what some of my favorite moments are, that is number one. Just that moment of them on the bike. Everything with the robot. Everything with the robot is number two. Everything. If you know what happens with that robot, everything. And the finale does not disappoint. I gotta say, a lot of times, even with really well done shows, the finale tends to disappoint. And I gotta say, this is a mega spoiler, even though I'm not technically spoiling this show. I did not like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay? Obi-Wan Kenobi has the third sister as really the main character, and Obi-Wan is kind of just this fucking plot device running around with a little annoying kid. Great actors. All of them great actors. I really did not like the writing of Leia. I thought it was incredibly not what the character would be. I don't even care if George Lucas thinks it's what the... No. I do not think that's what Leia would be as a kid. She doesn't. She talks more like a snotty 20-year-old as opposed to a snotty 10-year-old, which is what she's supposed to be. And again, that's not the actress. I'm talking about the writing. I did not like that. And when it comes to the third sister, again, they essentially copy the Darth Vader plot line and sort of summarize it with the third sister. And there's this twist. And spoiler alert for Obi-Wan, there's this twist where the third sister's actually just trying to get revenge against Darth Vader because she knows that it's Anakin Skywalker. And so she's really a secret ally of Obi-Wan Kenobi, even though she's been hunting him for the entire season. And to me, it just rings as bullshit. I think the show Obi-Wan Kenobi should have been about Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Vader. Darth Vader is on the hunt for Obi-Wan Kenobi because he's the only one that he knows for sure is still alive. You know, Yoda fell down some frickin' piping, so, you know, as far as Sidious knows, even if he's alive, he clearly is not well enough to come back, otherwise he would. But Obi-Wan is the only one they know for sure is alive, so it should have really been about Darth Vader has been hunting for Obi-Wan for 10 years, and it's just about these two. We don't need any other side characters to fill it up, and we don't need to put this really, really rude and this forced writing. The entire relationship between Obi-Wan and Leia is incredibly forced in the first 3 episodes. And it's not the Force, it's just forced. And we all know things being forced, never good. But the whole twist with the third sister being, you know, and then the fact that you're calling her a sister too is like, are you kind of being racist at the same time? I don't know what the hell's going on here. Even though she was, again, standout actress, like her performance, again, in her case, like the performance kind of outshined the writing. It was like the writing is trash, but your performance is so goddamn good. I gotta give it to you, third sister. You're a great actress. I see why you're Captain Marvel in Doctor Strange too. But you know, damn, like I really didn't care for that twist. I felt like it was not pulled off well in either the writing or the directing. And it's really just a show that should have focused on the characters Obi-Wan and Anakin and just been about them. And we should have had Obi-Wan protecting Luke, and this whole wanting to this whole forcing women to the forefront. It's okay. At the end of the day, it's about what the story is about. What is your story about? That's got to be at the forefront. All your political agendas and all that nonsense, eventually people read through it, and time tells you for sure what lasts and what doesn't. So the fact that, spoiler alert for the finale, if you don't want it spoiled for the finale of Paper Girls, don't listen any further. There's a twist where we do have this agent of the future from the Empire. We'll call them the Empire because I don't know what the hell they're called. But you know, the very nicely dressed oppressive force has this agent played by Adina Porter, fantastic. And again, spoiler alert: in the very last moments of the finale, she helps out the Paper Girls, but she has a very good reason to. And in fact, it doesn't seem like she's doing it to be a secret rebel. She just feels that actually by helping them out, she's really supporting her group's cause more than not helping them out, which is interesting. Like, she has such an interesting twist. I feel like that's more interesting to me than someone just having a secret, well, I was just secretly against. Like, no, she has a valid reason to go against her own code, because actually she feels that as much of a violation as it is to help these girls out, she's going to be helping the code more than not. So I really loved her, particularly in that last episode, because it was a surprise, but it was not a twist. It was just more like the writing gave us just enough, and the performance gave us exactly what we needed to understand. Oh, okay. Okay, if you're going to do this, that's how you do it. Okay, writers of Obi-Wan, watch Paper Girls. Okay, Disney Plus, hire the people. Actually, you know what? Disney, I'm not watching your stuff anymore. I'm done. Paper Girls. Amazon, keep doing what you're doing. Keep hiring very talented filmmakers who don't have these agendas. You can have females at the forefront. You can tell those stories, but let them be their own stories. Let them stand on their own. As many YouTubers and podcasters have said, I try to stay out of this, but if you're just trying to hijack a known character who is a particular color, and if you're deliberately doing it, then you're really just saying that the person who's hijacking them for another color or another sex, you're saying that you're actually not worth it. You have to play this character to be worth it. Your tactic completely defeats your purpose. So you gotta cut that shit out. Disney, and I know it's Disney, because Marvel fought for decades for filmmakers to pick up the goddamn comic book and be respectful. And now that they've been purchased by Disney, and now just as people complained about George Lucas, now that you're a conglomerate, now that you're this big thing, now you're making these moves that don't quite make sense, and you're really offending the people that are where the source of your money come from. There's a way to do both. This is how you do it. Good writing. No agenda. The agenda has to be something honest. It has to be a perspective that comes from the people making it. That yes, it does have to fit your business models, and it does have to fit your audience expectations, but it still has to come from a singular point of view that has something to say that's personal. You know, and what you're saying has to be true. You know, I never understood when I was younger. I thought acting was lying. And I mean, yes, you are not being someone who is literally real, but the emotions that come out of you have to be real. And the writing has to be honest based on what your character is going through. And if your character, I mean, yeah, people do make choices that don't line up with what they say or want, but if it really doesn't line up, and if there's some hidden agenda, that always shines brighter than whatever work you were trying to do. And I love Paper Girls for just being what it is, for being a very self-reflective story about people. And I hope it's accurate to the comic books. Let me know in the comments if I should check it out. That's all I want to know. I'd rather talk to you then have your appraisal, or even your, I mean, you can thumbs down, that's fine, but I don't care. I don't want your negative comments. And you know, if you think I suck, I agree. I agree, okay? And if you think I'm great, I appreciate it. I don't really care. What I would like to do, I'd rather just talk to you. If you thought the show sucked, or if you thought it was inaccurate, I just want to know why. So can you say, hey, well, actually, in issue 4, that totally disagrees with episode 4. I'm like, I want to hear that. I'm interested in that. So I'll talk to you. I'll have a conversation with you. But other than that, I'm not interested in your comments or likes or subscriptions. I don't care. I just want to tell you how great this show is, and that it did affect me in this way. This was my personal reaction to it. I hope if you like the other things I've recommended that you feel that I'm steering you in the correct direction. I really feel that Paper Girls is a solidly well-made show for the reasons I've stated, and against the complaints I've had about other stuff. So I hope you go watch it. If you haven't seen it, I hope I didn't spoil too much for you. But I do think even if I did, I think you will still enjoy what's coming, because it's just so well done. I think what makes movies great and makes them stand the test of time is that even if you've watched it 100 times, like Jurassic Park, I must have watched that movie 1,000 times. I don't know. But every single time the T-Rex knocks over the fence and steps out and roars, I am terrified. And that's because the filmmaking does the correct things. It's telling a story about these 4 people in these 2 separate cars, in the rain, in the dark, alone. And it takes the time to put you there and feel the thump. Even though you don't literally feel the thump, when you see that water shake, the thump might as well be real. That is what the filmmaker has to do. And I feel that although this movie doesn't have that particular moment, Nope does, I appreciate that it's just goddamn good storytelling for the sake of good storytelling, and that it's a human story that we can relate to and just be human about. That's what it's all about, you know? At the end of the day, we're all people, and each one of us has a point of view. And that's what matters. If we want to make it to the end of the day, we can't forget that. You know? Some of us hold grudges. But I won't get into my grudges today. But what I don't begrudge is watching Paper Girls. Because once I got to episode 5, I had to binge it to the end. I was like, oh no, what's going to happen next? You know? And then it's not like an action show, but it does have just a teensy bit of action in it. And again, nothing feels forced. Like when the action happens and Ali Wong drives a robot, it still feels natural the way that the action happens with the robot. It's both underwhelming and great at the same time, which is like real life. That robot scene. Oh my god. You gotta watch it for the robot at least. If you don't care about good storytelling with these little tween, some of them are jerks. They're a little bit jerks, but you know, the other 2 are not jerks, and we watch for them. Even if you don't care about that, just watch it for Ali Wong and the robot. That is just okay. I want to direct this. I want to direct Pacific Rim 2, the real Pacific Rim 2, with Ali Wong driving a robot. We're gonna correct Pacific Rim. We're gonna do it again, but as Power Rangers. I want to make it. Watch I Only Need One. If you don't think I can direct after watching that, well, you're probably still right. But I think I could do it. Go check that out. And if you don't think I could direct, don't tell me. I'm scared now. Yeah, I know. Okay, edit that out. So, just for the robot, go check this show out. Thank you very much. This was longer than I meant it to be. But thank you for watching. Remember, don't like, don't subscribe, and don't comment. Am I talking about my show? Yeah, I don't care. Anyway, check out Paper Girls. It's way better than everything else that's on right now anyway. So, booyah. Booyah? I'm not in the DC cinematic universe. What the